What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. It's time for some TNC. Hope you guys are ready. Hope you had a good weekend. Let me make sure I got everything up and running. Phone lines are up. Isan in the chat says Wilder won the arbitration. Dude, you're trolling, right? Because all the information I just heard, unless something's breaking right now, you guys need to let me know. But Isan, if you're trolling, and we just started the show, you can't troll that quickly. You got to give us some time to ease into it. Then we can start to troll. Anyway, because we had totally different news. Totally different news. All right, well, hold on a second, guys, because Isan is saying, swear to God. Well, a couple of you guys are saying this. Midwest Boxing saying, I just heard off some IG page, Wilder won his arbitration case. Is this true? Isan says, swear to God. Well, shit. All right. You guys are going to have to give me a link because, Tyson Fury said something totally different the other day. Let's see here because I know it'll be all over my page. But I will tell you what, guys, I'll pull up my Twitter account here on my screen here that you can't see. And it is all over Twitter. Okay, Mark Kriegel reporting. So if Mark Kriegel's reporting it, I do trust that. Mark Kriegel says, so breaking news. All right, we're just going to get right into news here. An arbitrator has ruled that Tyson Fury and Bronze Bobber must face each other in a rematch by September 15th. Okay, so let's get into the show, guys, and then we'll read more about this. All right. Welcome back, fight fans, to episode number 267 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Montero, for Ring Magazine, Ring TV, and the Ring Digital YouTube channel where you're watching me live right now. Quick reminder that the July issue of Ring Magazine with the great, legendary Sugar Ray Robinson on the cover is out in stores and is available. Of course, you can get the digital version online. But me, I'm old school. I like the hard copy, man. I got to have the actual magazine. I mean, look at my backdrop, guys. Obviously, I like magazines. So make sure you guys check that out, okay? TNC 267 for the week of May 22nd. As always, I remind you guys, please, 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 make sure that you're subscribed here on the Ring Digital, but also make sure that you're subscribed on Montero Unboxing, not just on YouTube, but on podcast platforms all around the world, wherever you listen to podcasts, because we go live video every Monday, and then the audio pod goes out on Montero Unboxing's podcast platforms globally. So whichever podcast you listen to, and I know there's about 14,000 of them, whichever one, or maybe you listen on a few different platforms, please make sure you subscribe to me. Make sure that you're dropping a rating, a review. That helps me out so, so much. And I know that a lot of you guys who listen, you've done it before, but some of you haven't, you know what I'm saying? So please, if you listen on multiple platforms, make sure that on all of them that you're just dropping a quick rating and review. It really, really helps me. On Apple Podcasts, for example, I can pull the analytics. I see how many thousands of people are listening. I've only got, I don't know, I think 150 reviews or something on there. We need to get those numbers up. So please, guys, make sure that you do that. Okay, I'm just going to get right into this because literally I went live 5 minutes ago here on YouTube, and a few of you on the chat have said that Deontay Wilder won arbitration against, I don't think it's against Tyson Fury or anything. They went into court. He wanted the third fight. It's been over a year, well, almost a year and a half now. By the time this fight happens, it will be over a year and a half. It's holding up the entire heavyweight division and the entire sport. But Deontay Wilder and his legion of desperately loyal fans do not give a shit. So I am looking at my Twitter timeline here, and it's flooded with tweets about this. And I'm looking at Mark Kriegel's official Twitter page. And he just tweeted this out at 4:32 p.m., just a few minutes before I went live here, 4:32 p.m. Eastern time, because I know a lot of you guys are listening all over the world. But Mark Kriegel says, breaking, an arbitrator has ruled that Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder must face each other in a rematch. He calls it a rematch, even though it will be a third fight. So, Mark, I don't like your wording there. This is a third fight. By September 15th, this September 15th, obviously, 2021. And he says, more to come. He says, more TK. I think he meant, I don't know what the hell he meant by TK. But let's see what else he has on there. That's it. That's his latest tweet. And damn, dude, just yesterday, May 16th, Tyson Fury tweeted something, and I think he posted something on Instagram. He said, massive announcement, Fury versus Joshua is on August 14th in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I tell you what, guys, you know, I'm always cautious about this stuff because if a fight isn't officially signed and announced by all the parties involved, including the promotion, the promoters, but also the networks, and not just by one side, but both sides, I always have caution. I mean, I did a radio spot last night. In fact, they sent me the audio, and I was going to post that on my YouTube channel later today. I did a national radio segment last night on Dave Smith's show. The legendary Dave Smith out of Los Angeles. I've done a ton of radio segments with him. And he wanted to do a radio segment talking about Tyson Fury's announcement. And I made sure to clearly state, hey, man, it's not official yet, okay? But this is what's being reported, August 14th, Saudi Arabia, blah, blah, blah. And then we broke down the fight and talked about the heavyweight division. But I made sure to stipulate it's not officially official. And in fact, last week, there was a couple announcements about this, and I kind of trolled because there was, I think, Sky Sports did the website did a announcement that the fight was on, right? And I retweeted it, and I quote tweeted it and said, this isn't officially official, you know? So I don't know what to believe right now, but Mark Kriegel works with ESPN, who represents Tyson Fury. So if he's saying that this fight is off, and there would be no benefit to him saying that politically, that the Fury Joshua fight is off. So let's assume that this is legitimate and that an arbitrator ruled that Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury have to fight next by September 15th. Okay, so we get that fight. It'll be on Fox pay-per-view. Perhaps it's another split Fox/ESPN pay-per-view. Perhaps since Fury won last time, it'll just be on ESPN pay-per-view. All those details are going to have to be worked out. But honestly, guys, it's a good fight. Don't get me wrong. Anytime Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight, it's going to be a good fight. But is this progress? Let's say they fight September 15th, okay, because they'll push that back as far as they can. Or at some point at the very end of August, early September. That is almost 2 years, but more than a year and a half from the second fight, which was last January? I always forget, it was a January or February. I know it was at the beginning of 2020. You're going to get the third fight toward the very end of 2021. Meanwhile, the fight everybody wants to see, the majority of the fans want to see, is a fight between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And there was a site fee offered. Apparently it was $155 million, and there was going to be a $75 million split between Fury's side and Joshua's side. $5 million was going to go to the undercard. Talk about a 1%er type of card. That would have been a record site fee, obviously, a record purse for both men. This would have broke the previous record site fee over in that part of the world for the Joshua Ruiz rematch. So Tyson Fury yesterday, he said, I just got off the phone with Prince Khalid of Saudi Arabia. He told me the fight is 100% on August 14th. So I don't know what the hell to believe right now. I truly don't. But I am sick and tired of the back and forth between all these people involved. And I got to be honest, all of them share some blame. Anthony Joshua's side, probably the least. Then Tyson Fury's side. But Deontay Wilder's side, look, man, I don't want to sit here and beat up on Deontay because he gets enough flack, and a lot of it is he deserves some of it. A lot of it is he created himself. But at the same time, I just don't want to dump on the guy. But, dude, you're holding up progress in the heavyweight division. It's not as if the second fight was competitive. Tyson Fury won every second of every round of that rematch. And Wilder didn't come in injured. There wasn't some there's all kinds of conspiracies, of course, but it's not as if Wilder came in with some major injury that we find out about later, or there is any cheating going on. Of course, forget about the conspiracies. I'm talking about actual cheating that was proven. There was drug testing for that rematch. Everything, the gloves and all that were thoroughly inspected by Nevada State Athletic Commission officials. There was no scoring controversy It was a one-sided, absolute domination. And it was last February 22nd. Tony Yayo in the chat, thank you for correcting me, because I couldn't remember if it was January or February. So now we're going to have to wait literally until 2022 before we get the Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight. If somehow Deontay Wilder shocks the world and beats Tyson Fury in this third fight, that's an amazing story. And I hope that Wilder would fight Anthony Joshua next year. But there's a track record here, guys. And I'm not going to get into a whole Al Heyman PBC thing and what they do. Spence Crawford. I could give you a million examples. But Deontay Wilder himself turned down what I think it was $100+ million deal to go over to the zone. They're going to pay him $20 million for the Brazil fight, and then I think $40 million for 2 fights guaranteed with Anthony Joshua. Right? There was going to be a 2-fight deal there. He turned that down. He turned that down ultimately to take less money against a guy that he thought would end up being easier. Him and his team, would, like a lot of us, looked at Tyson Fury and I think undersold him, and they thought that was going to be easy pickup where they could get the lineal championship, quote unquote, and take that to negotiations with Joshua. So there's a track record there of Wilder and his team not wanting to fight Anthony Joshua. So if somehow he were to beat Tyson Fury in the third fight this August, September, assuming that's what happens, I'm not that confident that next year we get the consolidation. You take Deontay Wilder out of this situation, I'm very, very sure that both Fury and Joshua wanted that fight. They truly wanted that fight. And yes, it was a pain in the ass with the negotiations. It was back and forth, and there was all this talk and conjecture on social media that drove me freaking nuts. And there was every podcast. Tyson Fury took a shit today. What does this mean about the Anthony Joshua fight? Oh, Anthony Joshua masturbated today in his closet. What does that mean about the Tyson Fury matchup? Every damn podcast, every damn website was posting articles like that. It's driving me nuts. Eddie Hearn is wearing a bathrobe while picking up the paper. What does this mean about negotiations? I don't give a shit. Just make the goddamn fight. And now it looks like we're not going to get it. So, this honestly sucks. But again, I'm not even 100% sure I believe this. And who knows? Maybe there's some step aside money planned and they could do that. And maybe this was all just a ploy of Wilder's team to get some extra money in his pocket and he ends up fighting the winner. Maybe that could be negotiated. I don't freaking know. But, we got a phone call here. Let's jump over to the phones real quick, and I'll get back to news and notes. Man, this just blew up right before the damn show. So let's jump over to the phones. 513, you're on the show. Go.
Hey, Michael. I don't understand why they keep putting these rematch clauses in these fights, because not all these fights require a rematch. I mean, I don't see why anything's going to be different if Wilder fights Fury again.
I hear you, man. That's just, well, first of all, who am I talking to?
This is Andrew.
Andrew. Okay. Well, thanks for calling in, man. Yeah. That's just the way these big deals are negotiated now. When you have fighters on, it's part of the problem with the fractured nature of the sport right now, because if you have a fighter on Fox, a fighter on ESPN, and they're doing a huge deal like this, the money's so big and there's so much at stake that they just want to wrap it together with a rematch clause. And I just think every big fight that you see from here going forward, it's going to have that kind of stuff tied into it, unfortunately.
Well, do you think there's a way they could maybe add stipulations to the rematch clause where if the fight ends in a knockout, it's null and void, or if it's wide enough on the card that they can't go redo the rematch clause because it's not really necessary because the fight wasn't good enough or close enough or competitive enough to really constitute a rematch?
That's a really good, really good point, man. And I think going forward, we're going to see that. Also, how about a global pandemic? No one saw that shit coming. So that wasn't obviously in the contract before because sports and boxing specifically has never gone through something exactly like COVID before. So I think going forward, there's probably going to be stipulations like this in the contract. I mean, Deontay Wilder fans are going to be extremely excited about this if it's legitimate and this all comes true, right? And he ends up fighting Fury a third time. But I think the majority of fans were looking forward to Fury and Joshua fighting more. So to me, this is kind of holding up progress. And I think going forward, promoters and fighters are going to want to protect themselves in contracts like this. And you might start to see stipulations like that. I think that's a great suggestion, Andrew.
Well, I guess the only good thing that might come out of this, I know Usyk is he's the WBO mandatory for Joshua. We might get that fight now.
Yeah, perhaps we do get that fight because where else does Joshua go?
I mean, if it's mandated by the WBO, he's been waiting for a while too. I mean, Fury's doing an interim fight, and it might not end up being a bad thing because the guy's probably got some ring rust. Both of them have been out of the ring a while, haven't they?
Yeah, man, the whole heavyweight division has been held up for really the whole damn year. We've all been waiting. And honestly, again, I don't want to turn this into an anti-Deontay Wilder thing because I get accused of being overly critical, but it's him and his team demanding this third fight with Fury that on the back end, behind the scenes has been holding everything up. Because once Fury and Joshua, once that fight was announced, everything else was going to start to fall into place. Not just in the heavyweight division, but I think you would have seen Errol Spence's next fight, Terrence Crawford's next fight, the Canelo Plant fight, all those things, all those chips were going to start to fall into place. The big fight, the big, cloud over everybody has been Fury Joshua. And if that's blown up now, then the whole thing's been on hold all year for nothing. It sucks.
Well, the other interesting thing is I don't even really I've just kind of started to get into the sport more, but I catch out the big fights. I actually tuned in for the second fight between Fury and Joshua. It was right when I kind of just I was starting boxing in the periphery. I enjoyed the event, but I that can't be a good idea for Wilder. I mean, I think he'd be better off going somewhere else to kind of start to feel himself a little bit more again, kind of get a couple more W's back before he goes to try and take out the king again. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I honestly, it could build up a third fight and make it that much bigger. I mean, look, if we got Fury versus Joshua August 14th, like they were planning on doing and wanted to do, and then you had, let's say, Wilder take on Andy Ruiz, two guys who really need a big win. They have a lot to prove, right? Ruiz had a dominant loss to AJ in their rematch, and Wilder had a dominant loss to Fury in his rematch. So if those two guys fought on Fox pay-per-view, maybe, a few weeks within the Fury Joshua fight, the winners of those two fights, it's a no-brainer for next year. And that could go to Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium, that brand new stadium they built there. That would be 100% capacity. I mean, it just makes too much sense. That is a build, that's something that fans could get behind. And now all that's on hold. And it's just this messy, nasty situation. And I say all this, and I admit that Wilder Fury, that their third fight, it's going to still be a good fight. I do think Wilder will fight better in the third fight. I think he'll look better. I think it'll be more competitive. But Fury's probably going to win. Yeah. And then the fight that everybody really, really wants that consolidates the heavyweight division, the biggest fight in fight sports in probably 20 years, now is held off for another year because one guy and his ego don't want it yet. It just sucks.
Anyway. Yeah, and also like you talk about pay-per-views, like you brought up Andy Ruiz Wilder. Like I mean, I'm not made of money. I'm only going to buy a pay-per-view if it looks like a really good matchup. That's something I'd buy. That's a fun fight.
Yeah, of course. It's a great matchup, man. It's something that I think really would have broke through, and unfortunately, all the momentum for that has just been crushed. We had the COVID thing. Tyson Fury was trending. He was really, his name was out there among casual sports fans here in America after he beat Wilder. And then the pandemic hit, and that's nobody's fault. I mean, that happened to everybody, right? So you understand why the momentum got crushed. But then, man, we're in May and we're almost halfway through the year, and none of the top 3 premier heavyweights have fought yet, and none of them officially have a fight on the schedule yet. That's shit, man. That's shit. But Andrew, I got to get into the show, man. We've already been going here for 20 minutes on this topic, brother. But thanks for calling in, man.
No problem. Appreciate you taking a phone call.
All right, brother. Call in again, man.
Bye.
All right, I see one we got another call here, but just hang on real quick. I want to get through a couple other quick news items, okay? And it looks like, I mean, you guys are probably going to want to talk about this because obviously it's a big deal. But in the chat, Craig Brain Impact says, if Tyson just flat out refuses the Wilder fight, what is the penalty and how can they even enforce it if Tyson no longer fights in the U.S.? I don't know. I mean, all that is detailed in the contract. So, you know, there would be certain ramifications with the sanctioning organizations. I think Fury holds the WBC title, but I don't know if Wilder is their mandatory or anything, so he might be good there. He'd be good with us at Ring because if he didn't fight Wilder and fought Joshua instead, he'd be fine with us. So I think he'd be okay in the sanctioning organizations, but this is legal. If it's tied up in a legally binding contract, he could be out millions and millions of dollars, right? And it could cost him a suspension with the actual boxing authorities, you know, the Nevada State Athletic Commission. I don't know what's involved in the contract. I wasn't there. The only people that truly, truly know are the people who are directly involved. So all this will definitely get sorted out. But my real hope is that Wilder can take some step-aside money and he's guaranteed to face the winner early next year. I think that'd be the best-case scenario. And in the meantime, let's see Wilder fight. I mean, he's probably going to fight Charles Martin for a comeback fight, but then fight Andy Ruiz while Fury and Joshua fight, and then the winners of those 2 fights fight next year. I think that'd be great. So, all right, I'm scratching off my list here on the news of Fury Joshua August 14th in Saudi Arabia, this record-setting site fee, because it looks like that's axed. Real quick, let me go back to Mark Kriegel's page, because his Twitter page, he was the one who tweeted out this story here. Nothing else since then. But for those of you who are just getting on, Mark Kriegel over at ESPN, who, you know, I consider a legitimate source, he tweeted, breaking, an arbitrator has ruled that Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder must face each other in a third fight by September 15th, 2021. So that is the breaking news today. Boom. Other news I wanted to get you guys, make you guys aware of. Team USA is sending 6 boxers to the 2020 Tokyo Olympics this summer. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics are happening in 2021. This is so crazy. Anyway, they're sending only 6 boxers. And guess what? 4 are female, 2 are male. So USA Boxing, which it was hurt by the pandemic, more so maybe than other countries, not as much as some other countries. But I do think this affected things with the Olympics and all that to a certain degree. There were a couple guys that said, screw it, I'm going pro. You know, all those things happen. But American women are going to dominate in the Olympic boxing for years to come. Our girls are just bigger and meaner than the chicks in other parts of the world. They're going to win Olympic medals from here on out, for at least the next couple decades in women's Olympic boxing. But the men, we're sending 2 to the Olympics. Both of these guys have a good chance of medaling those, so we'll see. AIBA World Championship scheduled for Belgrade, Serbia, October 26th through November 6th. So if you guys care about that, I mean, I love seeing the World Championships just because you see the young talent. But the AIBA, one of the most corrupt sporting organizations in the world, they're not quite as bad as the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, who is the worst. They are the absolute worst. And FIFA right there with them. Those are just extreme levels of corruption in those parts of those organizations. But AIBA, they're up there. They're definitely up there. All right, I see a few of you guys dropped off the phones, but we got one other call that held on. So let me jump over here. From Anonymous. Anonymous, you are on the show. Go. Anonymous.
Could that be me?
Yes, that's you.
I like that name.
Well, what's your real name? What's your real name?
I'll take that. It's John.
Oh, John. Okay. What's up, brother?
How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Not much. It's very early in the morning here, so bear with me. I'm still waking up.
Okay.
It's like 7 a.m., so if I'm a little bit backward and slow, I do apologize in advance.
It's all good, man.
Okay. No, I had to ring because obviously with the AJ Fury fight, if what you're reporting is actually accurate and correct, then I mean we're being a bit blasé about this. I mean, as you said, if that was to occur and we have the third fight with Wilder and Fury, and obviously Wilder wins, then that fight's off. I mean, that's a massive deal. I mean, this is a really big deal.
It's huge. It's going to impact the heavyweight division for at least the next 12 months, if not more.
Oh, well, it would be more. I mean, obviously that's the biggest fight in boxing. So,
yeah, good point.
As I say, I've virtually just sort of woken up and, we're sort of all talking about this, as I mentioned previously, in a very kind of blasé way. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we've just announced, Eddie Hearn has just announced the biggest fight in boxing and certainly the biggest fight since COVID. And now it may not occur. It may, in fact, it may not happen at all entirely. So that's scary. I mean, that's a very scary thought. So I'm still just taking this in and absorbing it. But, oh boy, yeah, not good.
I'm telling you, John, it looks like it's blown up because I'm looking. There's a few more sources that I trust who a couple people just DM me. So this is legit.
Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear it.
I'm sorry, man. First thing in the morning, we're just ruining your day. But it's legit.
I know you are. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh. So it does appear to be genuine.
It's genuine. Yeah, because the people, again, a couple guys have messaged me, and I'm just checking my messages right now, and it is legit, my friend.
Yep. Deary me. Oh, all right. Well, you've made my morning. Thank you for that.
I'm sorry.
I'll let you go. I'll allow you to get on with the show, but I can't believe it. This is a massive bummer, but anyway, there you go.
You might have to have a pint with breakfast. You might have to have a pint with breakfast, John, or two with this news.
Yeah, coffee, tequila, and an egg.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Something like that. But anyway. All right, okay. All right, buddy. Have a good show. Enjoy.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Have a good one. Oh, man. And I want to be clear here, guys, that once again, I need to repeat this. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury for a third time, that's not a bad fight. It's going to still be heavy drama. I mean, all the Wilder heads and the conspiracy theory people and all this are going to be involved. It's going to be a big deal. It also works out because Fury and his team were preparing for Anthony Joshua. They had a completely different camp. His body looks different because they were preparing for a different kind of fight. They were preparing for more of a distance tactical fight. And now the way that Fury showed up, his body and everything is preparation for the Wilder rematch. Pardon my English, it's kind of fucked. So Wilder and his team here, some sneaky genius, some backroom dealings, and this is the business of boxing. It gets a little nasty. It's very much like politics, like the last presidential election. There was some nastiness, and that's just how it gets. You know what I'm saying? So man, on and on it goes, this thing of ours with the soap opera. You just never know what to freaking expect, man. Okay, you know what? Let's get into the review because we actually had a pretty damn good fight this weekend to talk about. So, Saturday, May 15th, Manchester, England, Joshua Buatsi improves to 14-0 with a TKO 4 win over Daniel Dos Santos. Buatsi, good-looking light heavyweight prospect. Now, this was an exciting KO. It was kind of a looping right hand that caught Dos Santos on the temple. and he immediately crumbled on his way down for good measure. Buatsi nailed him again, and that put him spark out, unconscious. Scary knockout. But in fairness, Dos Santos, his resume is dog shit. I took a shit this morning that's about as substantial as Dos Santos' resume. That's not to shit on the fighter, Dos Santos, but that's just the reality. I'm having a little fun. I don't mean to be disrespectful. He hadn't faced legit world-class opposition. So great knockout for Buatsi, but it's time to step up the opposition. He hasn't fought guys that, are really going to start to test him. Let's bump it up now in the second half of 2021. But I'm interested in watching Buatsi. He's a Ghana native who now lives in London, of course, trains out of London, was in the 2016 Olympics. He got bronze in the 2016 games, and he's a smart guy. He has a double degree in management and sports science. So he's an educated boxer. So definitely this guy is going to be set up for business or something like that after boxing. You love to see that. You love to see these guys coming out now and getting degrees and stuff like that outside the ring, and they can still handle their business in the ring. So he's a smart dude, and he can fight a little bit. I want to see more from him. PBC on Showtime, TGB promotion. Sorry, Tom. Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. This was a pretty fun card. I really thought that this was a fun card, and a part of it was there were actually fans there. I know a bunch of you guys that were there. One of my dear friends, Jeff Joyner, went with a friend of mine, Anthony Saldana, who dabbles in boxing media there in Southern California. Anthony does some writing. His wife, Cynthia, did photography. They're dear friends of mine. Cynthia passed away late last year due to COVID. So it was kind of a bittersweet thing. Jeff, let me know him and Anthony were going to the fights, Anthony Saldana. And I think it was the first time Jeff had gone to a fight after my brother's death and Cynthia's death. My brother Anthony's death and Anthony Saldana's wife's death, Cynthia. So it was very, very bittersweet for them to go to the fights. But, they were excited, but at the same time, it was a little different, So seeing the two of those guys, they sent me a selfie with them, chilling in the crowd. It kind of hurt, but I was happy at the same time to see, people back out the fights. And I know a bunch of you guys who were there at Stugnany. That's what I'm going to start calling it. I was going to call it Dignity StubHub Depot, but maybe Stugnany is a good just mixture of all those words. So we'll just call it that for now on. And a lot of you guys, you didn't have to wear a mask. You're out there chilling, drinking beers, having fun the way it should be. Socially distanced, responsible, of course, but it was just good to hear some fans. Anyway, Danny Roman, very, very good 122 fighter, probably the third best of that division. He got a good W on the undercard. I still think he's a live dog against anybody in that division on any given night. And lightweight prospect Xavier Martinez both got good wins on the undercard. But in the main event, Brandon Figueroa pulls the slight upset win, KO 7 win over Luis Neri, gets it off a body shot, a hard body shot, like an uppercut, almost to like the top part of the rib cage, just under the pecs. And that's a painful shot if you're opened up and you're not prepared for it, and especially if you move down into it. Like if you miss a shot and you come down into that uppercut, that's a painful shot. You can see that Neri was in pain. It wouldn't surprise me if he has a fractured rib, or at least a very, very badly bruised rib, or ribs, plural, from that punch. But you know what? I liked Neri going into this fight. On paper, I just thought Neri was going to win, but there's been rumors about this guy. We know he's had issues making weight in the past. We know he's had issues with performance-enhancing drugs. So I don't know if these guys were testing or not. To my knowledge, I don't know if they were. But either way, Neri couldn't make weight, right? So Friday, you look at the weigh-in. I think he finally weighed in like 3 hours later, makes weight. Had I seen that, I would have changed my pick. And I know there's a few of you guys out there who watch the show and you base your picks and the way that you bet based on what I tell you here on the show. And most of the time I'll win you guys money. That's why you owe me beers when we meet up. But this particular week, I told you guys that Neri was going to win this fight. But after seeing that weigh-in, holy shit, the odds really, really shifted. And it started shifting a little bit before the weigh-in. I think that's because some of that, his troubles making weight got leaked out there to people. The odds makers they always know guys on the street. All right. It's wise guys in that business. You know what it is. And they get info off the street, and they kind of knew. But, I need to start doing a Friday show on my channel where maybe we just do a quick wrap up after weigh-ins and do one last, I guess, pick segment or something like that. So if you guys would be interested in something like that, I won't be able to do it every Friday. It will depend on my workload. But that's why, sometimes I used to break up the show in 2 parts. And that was one of the reasons why. Because sometimes you get like breaking news toward the end of the week, or somebody looks different at a weigh-in, or even sometimes at like a public workout. You could see a dude and you're like, dude, that guy, how the hell is he going to make weight? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, maybe that's something I can look at. But for Brandon Figueroa, he is going to fight Stephen Fulton September 11th to unify titles. I love this. The winner of that fight is the consensus number 2 in that division. Number 1 is Akhmadaliev. And I think Roman's right there at number 3. And any combination of those fighters. So right now, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think the way we have him ranked at Ring is, of course, Akhmadaliev, number 1. And then I think right under that, you're going to have Fulton, Roman, and then Figueroa, right? So any of those guys get in the ring, any combination of it, it's great. This is a great division. Don't forget about Rais Alim. He's right there. This division is great because these guys are fighting each other. What a noble concept. If only the welterweights would look at what they're doing at 122 and 140 and a couple other divisions. But that's why this division delivers, man. But I love that we have a build. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier related to the heavyweight division with the Wilder, Fury, Joshua catastrophe right now, that whole mess. But with Brandon Figueroa, Luis Neri, they were fighting. Stephen Fulton was there. And after the fight, he got in the ring with Figueroa. And these 2 guys are going to fight. You know the date. The only thing you don't know right now is the venue. It would be awesome if we knew what city and venue. But these are the guys. You see their face. You hear them talk. They meet each other in the ring. You know that they're going to fight. They've both been fighting on Showtime, right? You've seen them fight on Showtime before. So there's a history there. There's a build. This is what boxing needs to do more of. It's something they do great over at UFC. It's something they do great over in WWE. Is WWE still the thing in wrestling? I don't know, because they've changed names so many times. But over in wrestling, a big reason why that works is because the storylines, and it's something that boxing just screws up so much. Talk about the heavyweight division. The storylines get screwed up, and timelines and builds. It's easy for casual sports fan to follow a build. If you look at the Super Bowl, I always use American football as an example because probably 90% of the people that watch the Super Bowl don't watch another damn football game all year. Half the country, probably more than half the country, watches the Super Bowl. And it's because the majority of the people watching are casual sports fans, right? But there's a build. There's a storyline. You have your regular season. You have your playoffs. And all the storylines converge. And the best teams play against each other. And then you have the 2 top teams that wind up in the Super Bowl. It's simple. It's easy to follow. Somebody who doesn't know a damn thing about American football can see what's going on in the NFC Championship, the AFC Championship. That determines who's going to be in the Super Bowl. And then they know who's in the big game, what the storylines are, because the mainstream media jumps all in on that stuff. And they know who they're going to pull for and all that good stuff. Boxing used to do the storyline thing so well. You look at behind me, the guys on these magazines, some of these faces on these magazines. George Foreman's back there. Evander Holyfield's back there, right? There's some of these guys on there. Back when they were fighting, there was these storylines built up, and you knew what was coming down the road. You knew what was at stake when you watched a fight, because you knew, okay, the winner of this fight's probably going to fight the winner of this fight coming up next week. You could follow it. And so I like that with this card. Great job by TGB Promotions. Figueroa and Fulton, that's going to be a fun fight. I favor Fulton in that fight style-wise, but that's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Depending on where it's held, the crowd atmosphere should be awesome. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, man. All right, let's We got a call real quick. So let's jump over to this call, and then we'll do the big loaded preview. We got a big fight to talk about. All right. 570, you're on the show.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I think the Friday show would be a great way to kind of break it up and do the fight review or the fight prognostication on Fridays. I think people would love to call in and, break down the fights because, this past weekend, the information came out that Neary was only getting $250,000 compared to Figueroa was getting $650,000. And with PBC fighters, that, the powers that be were behind Figueroa in that fight. And, if you're looking to make a bet, it was a smart move to put it on Figueroa there.
Yeah, man. It
any
seemed,
information counts.
When you saw the odds shift like that, you knew that money was, changing hands.
Yeah.
Last minute like that. It's like, holy shit.
My book stayed the same. I'm on Fox Bet. And that's the same as William Hill, basically, which is a really highly respected outlet. So I didn't see any changes, but maybe on some other outlets it did. But yeah, I mean, that info could help people. Mm-hmm. And on a Friday show after weigh-ins, everyone could kind of pitch in and, break it down. Cause, at this point, everybody has an online account. Gambling's legal in every state, basically. So, why not? I think it's good for the sport. It gets more people involved. You have a little stake in it. So, that'll be great if you could do that Friday.
Yeah, I think I'll start doing that. I mean, maybe we'll get that started this Friday. It's just as long as I'm free to do it, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta budget that time. But
yeah,
I'm going crazy listening to this arbitration, which just happened with Wilder. Now, Al Heyman, you never could underestimate this guy. He always finds a way, to grease palms. I mean, I'm not making any accusations here, but this guy always seems to get his way. And you made a great point about Tyson Fury. He changed his body, and now he's, a svelte boxer again. And if he has to fight Wilder, does he go back to the 275-pound beast that just came forward and obliterated Wilder? Maybe. If I'm Fury, I'm just gonna relinquish the WBC belt at this point and just fight Joshua if that's the only way I can do it. I think the people want the two best fighters heavyweight to fight. I don't think the WBC belt matters. If anything, it would be more entertaining to see Wilder finally have to fight Dylan White for the vacant strap. Yeah. I think that would be great. And then have Tyson Fury come and whoop his ass again to clean up all the belts, and then have AJ maybe fight Usyk after whoever wins or loses that fight. But I wouldn't be shocked if Fury counters and just drops the WBC belt in the trash can, aka Riddick Bowe. This time it would be legit to do that.
If it's tied up with the sanctioning organization, then that's one thing. If he could just dump the WBC and say, screw it, I'm going forward with the fight everyone wants, the more important fight, that's one thing. But if it's tied up legally and money's at stake where Wilder could literally sue Fury for breach of contract for tens of millions of dollars, then Fury's stuck. He's got to do the third fight. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we don't know.
Well, then that would equate. But if it's arbitration, it's not a legal issue. That's just an arbitrator coming, like if you see in baseball, where they negotiate the contract before he's due for a new contract. It's just like that arbitration period. It's a mediator, basically. This isn't legal. So when the reports come out, it's gonna determine whether this is more or less, a WBC issue or if it's a contractual issue. So we're just have to wait and see. Now, Bob Arum, he came out and said, and he was an ex-lawyer, he said the contract expired, which it did because of COVID. Both parties, Fury and Wilder, suffered damages because of COVID. But how can you justify blaming one party for a pandemic? It just doesn't make sense. So I personally think it's going to come down to Fury just dropping the belt and saying, the hell with this. We're going to fight the biggest fight we've had in over a decade, and go forward from there. But just leave it to Al Heyman and Wilder to throw a monkey wrench into something good in boxing.
As soon as
it doesn't shock me one bit.
Yeah, and Thad, the thing is, people are going to try to inject their own context into that statement you just made, into some of the things I've said. It's not that we have anything against Wilder or Wilder's team here. It's that the fight that progresses boxing forward, the fight that unifies the heavyweight division and is the fight that everybody wants to see, is Fury versus Joshua. That's number one versus number two. It creates a legitimate heavyweight champion. It's something we could never truly have in the Klitschko era, because Vladimir and Vitaly wouldn't fight each other. So it's something that we've wanted for so long, and we're so close to having it, and boom, it's blowing up. And it's really, as I think Andrew said earlier in the call, it's not as if the rematch between Fury and Wilder was competitive. It's not as if there was some controversy on the scorecards or something. This isn't like a Canelo Golovkin situation. I have to make one Canelo Golovkin reference on every show. So there it was on every episode.
Oh, absolutely.
But you know what I'm saying? It was such a dominant win for Fury. And and then Joshua had such a dominant win over Ruiz in their rematch. It just, the natural progression was for those two guys to fight.
Yes.
And now that's blown up.
Yeah, and it kind of, the only other time I remember a beatdown that had a rematch because of the clause was Shane Mosley versus Winky Wright. He enacted his rematch clause against Winky, and Winky spanked him again. It was unnecessary. The boxing fans had to be subjected to that on HBO another time. It was just a waste of time. And it would be the same with Wilder Fury. So
let me ask you this.
I just don't want to see.
I was just going to ask if everything points to a third fight between Fury and Wilder happening this year. Does that do 500,000 pay-per-view buys?
I don't believe it would. There wouldn't be the lead up to it. There wouldn't be the hype around it, because the fight that they had, that was a draw. Wilder, floored him at the end, and it kind of raised a lot of people's curiosity to see what would happen in a rematch. I don't think anybody would really pay to see that fight. I think they'd go to watch it in a casino or stream it illegally. So I don't think it would do 500,000 buys. I know I wouldn't pay for it. The only thing that would be the issue is if Tyson Fury, with his new physique, how that's going to affect him. I think that's the only smoking gun as far as what happens in that fight. And I would think if Fury chose to go along with his AJ physique, he would outbox Wilder again. But the way to beat Wilder is put pressure on him and to attack. He can't fight off the back foot.
Yeah.
And he just can't take punishment. He doesn't move his head. He's a sit and duck. If a fighter was determined to just go in there and take hellfire coming in, they would knock Wilder out. Okay? The guys he fought, they were stiff. They didn't have the confidence. Most of those guys were taking fights on 2 weeks or 1 week notice, getting in the ring with Wilder and just getting blown out. But my theory on Wilder is he's done. He's a shot fighter. It doesn't matter who he fights in the top 10, he's going to get knocked out. So it's an easy money fight. It's just a matter of what kind of body type Fury comes in with. I just hope Fury and his team don't pay Wilder off to take a step aside. I think that's a bad precedent in boxing. I think it's a lot of fighters are just doing these moves to get the payoff. I think that's the real thing here is the Wilder people don't want the fight. I think they want the payoff. So I hope Fury sticks to his guns. Yeah. I just want to see him stick to his guns and just say, all right, well, here, take the WBC belt then. If all you want is a payoff, I'm not going to pay the money. Just take this garbage belt and I'm going to fight AJ for undisputed, because everyone knows I own that belt and I'm throwing it in the garbage can, because this is for the two best fighters at heavyweight right now. That's undisputable. He and AJ are the two best. So,
well, you are on the record, brother.
We'll see what happens.
I got to get back to it though, man.
Love being on the record. Will do. Have a good night.
All right, man. Thanks for calling in.
Okay.
All right, guys. I need to get to a few items here in the chat. Feeling dangerous with the super chat pledge. Thank you so much. She says, I hope you do a Friday show this week. I plan on putting some money on the big fight this weekend. Could use the insight. Well, I'll give you some big insight here in just a minute, okay? And as usual, I'm going to hit on a few things that I think a lot of people are overlooking. So we'll get into that in just a second. But some of you guys had some good comments in here. Thank you for the super chat. Zach D in the chat says, Saudi Prince, Eddie Hearn, and Arum, they will get their way. It just depends, man. It depends on the what's in that contract. We just don't know. Everybody's speculating, but we honestly don't know. They could have Fury by the balls in that contract, and it could cost him tens of millions of dollars to not go through with the fight. So Lobster 11 in the chat says, arbitration is actually a legal format. It's just not done via lawyers and courts, judges. Arbitration is done to avoid legal action. If arbitration breaks down, the legal process is an option. That is absolutely correct. That's how I understand it. Arbitration, as Thad just mentioned in the call, is like a mediation. It's a third party saying, all right, guys, let's sit down. Let's whack this shit up and let's figure out a way to make a deal here. And so the arbitrator that was hired, which was hired by Heyman's side, obviously sided with Heyman. Gee, there's a surprise. But, the guy that paid for the arbitrator, he sided with him. So it's not surprising. But now you can take that and you could go to court and say, listen, we have this contract. We had an arbitrator say, side with us. We want this third fight. So it looks to me, man, that the Fury-Joshua fight is off, guys. I mean, I think that it's pretty clear that fight is off until next year. And according to the decision by the arbitrator, what's being reported, and it's, again, sources I trust have now DM'd me. I just checked some DMs from guys I actually trust, not some of the talking heads on Twitter and stuff, but guys I know that I have full confidence in. And they told me, yeah, man, they got to fight by September 15th. So it is what it is. And we're definitely going to see this third fight. I don't know why they're calling it a rematch. I get it. Technically, it was a rematch of the second fight. That there was a rematch clause, but it's a third fight. So it's not a freaking rematch. They already had a rematch, and Fury won it. Let's see here. Supremo watching from Vegas. We appreciate you watching, brother. Twal in the chat says, can't they just make a deal that Fury versus Joshua winner must face Wilder next? I think they could. You could always make an amendment to a contract, and you could, add a stipulation and say, listen, we will pay you $10 million to sit on your butt, and you fight the winner next. Okay. So you're guaranteed crack at the winner next. And if I'm Deontay Wilder, that's the smart play, because you could fight Charles Martin or somebody like that, knock off some rust, collect $10 million for doing nothing, and then you get a crack at the completely unified heavyweight championship early next year. That's the smart play. Is that what they're going to do here? I don't know. It's hard for me to know what the hell is going on anymore. Emma Willis says, Wilder stopping undisputed again. Yes, if you think about it, when Fury was out, right, when he was having all of his issues, in Ring Magazine, we stripped him of his lineal championship. He didn't fight for almost 3 years. He ballooned up in weight. He was suspended by multiple boxing organizations, jurisdictions. Pretty much the top two guys were Joshua and Wilder, right? Wilder had the WBC title, but Joshua was collecting all the other titles. And the fight to make in the division at that time was Wilder and Joshua. And it was Wilder's side, and Wilder admitted this in interviews over the past 12 months. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass, but Wilder's side was offered career high money, over $100 million by DAZN, to do 3 fights, and 2 of them were fights with Anthony Joshua. There was one fight with Dominic Breazeale, and then who I think was a mandatory, and then he was going to fight 2 fights with Joshua. There's a guaranteed rematch in that deal. And he was advised to turn it down. So this isn't the first time him and his team have kind of prevented that number 1 versus number 2 matchup. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. All right, let's get into the preview of the big fight this weekend that's being overshadowed by all this heavyweight news. But I just wanted to reiterate what's going on in the heavyweight division, because I see a bunch of you guys just jumped on and are watching right now. So thank you for watching. I know you guys are watching from all over the world. So real quick, Fury Joshua is off. We're going to get the third fight between Fury and Wilder before September 15th this year. Obviously, that's probably going to happen in the United States. I'm guessing Las Vegas, but who knows? All right, this week, let's get into the preview. Friday, May 21st, there is a Telemundo card from Tampa, Florida. And Saturday, May 22nd, we got a couple different shows. Sam Eggington is fighting Carlos Molina in the UK. No TV outside of UK Channel 5 showing that fight, which is, I find surprising. Usually something like that would be picked up by ESPN Plus or one of the platforms. And there's a small club show in Greenville, South Carolina that I will be covering for Ring TV. A friend of mine, Levante Early, 13-0, 140-pound prospect out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Awesome guy, awesome family, and his whole team are great people. I've met them a couple years ago when I moved out to this part of the country, and I've trained at their gym a bunch of times and gotten to know them. So I'm going to be hanging out with Levante Early and his crew this Saturday in Greenville, South Carolina, as he goes up against Edward Diaz from the Dominican Republic. Early is scheduled to fight 5 times in 2021. He just fought in March, and now he's fighting in May this weekend, and I think July, September, and once again in the fourth quarter. So he is a prospect that is staying busy. He is on a fast track. So I'd look for my report about that, because I'd love to get some eyes on Levante Early, nicknamed Vaughn. Good dude. And I think you guys would enjoy watching him fight. All right, but the big show this weekend, Top Rank on ESPN and ESPN Plus, Virgin Hotels at Las Vegas. And, of course, this is the complete unification of the junior welterweight division. All of the titles on the line. Josh Taylor, 17-0 with 13 knockouts, going up against Jose Ramirez, 26-0. Again, this is complete unification and the most important championship, the Ring Magazine Championship, on the line. So let's break down some of this. And I want to talk a little bit about, first, let's get some numbers, but then let's talk about the promotion of this thing. Because holy shit, it doesn't feel like we should all be talking about this fight and be hyped up. And it just feels like there's no buzz. And I can't understand it, because this is the kind of matchup that we've wanted at 147. We wanted at heavyweight. It keeps getting delayed. This is the kind of matchup that we want in every division. And these guys are doing it in their prime, undefeated. So they both deserve respect. And look, this is the fight to watch this weekend. I don't give a damn what other sporting events going on. This is the sporting event to watch. Okay, guys, let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's make sure that we congratulate these guys and award them by watching this thing live, okay? Make sure you're at home this Saturday night and you're checking out this fight, because we need to reward fighters that are doing this sort of thing. Josh Taylor is 5'10", so is Ramirez. Taylor has a 69-inch reach, Ramirez a 72-inch reach. So Ramirez is a little bit longer arms, a little more gangly, and Taylor's probably a little more solid, a little more compact, maybe a little stronger naturally, but pretty much the same size. Taylor is 30 years old. Ramirez is 28. What's interesting is, even though Ramirez is younger, he went pro in 2012. Taylor went pro in 2015. So it's actually Ramirez who has, more professional fights, but Taylor had more amateur fights, 150 amateur fights, right around there. And Ramirez had about 90 amateur fights. However, they both wound up in the 2012 Olympics. The difference is that Taylor ended up fighting briefly in the World Series of Boxing. So Ramirez went right to the pros. Top Rank signed him, I think, right out of the Olympics. He's a name brand up there in Northern California, where he's from. And they immediately started building his brand up there in Fresno. And he's been doing crowds up there since he went pro. So Top Rank knows how to build a prospect like nobody else in the business. And they've really done a fantastic job with Ramirez, building him up. He's had a couple of close calls, right? But he's also had some good wins. They built him up very, very well. Taylor had a different path. And he had a few more amateur fights, went to the same Olympics Ramirez did, but goes into the World Series of Boxing. Good experience there. World Series of Boxing, you're probably going to face better opposition over there than a prospect would in their first 10, 15 fights in the normal American process, or not just in America with American fighters, but you know what I'm saying? If you're their first 10, 15 fights, most guys, you're building up and checking out different styles or whatever. But in the World Series of Boxing, you got to be a damn good fighter to make those squads, right? So Taylor probably fought better opposition in the World Series of Boxing than Ramirez did in his first 10 or dozen or so pro fights. However, in recent years, both of these guys have fought some damn good opponents. I should mention that Taylor is a southpaw, of course, and Ramirez is an orthodox fighter. That will come into play here. But both of these guys have taken some O's from fighters' records. Taylor has taken several O's. O'Hara Davies, Ryan Martin, and I get it. Those guys aren't world beaters, but they were undefeated when he fought them, and he took those O's. But also, how about Ivan Baranchek? How about Regis Prograis? Those are two very good wins, specifically the Prograis win. I thought that Taylor really bit down and showed something. And let's not forget, he went through that tournament. So he kind of went through the gauntlet. And that Prograis win was very, very good. Also had a win over Victor Postal. That's a good quality win. Looking at Ramirez, who trains with Robert Garcia, one of the best trainers in the business, one of the best gym scenes where he trains, but just the camp and everyone he has around him, one of the best in the business. This guy took O's from Antonio Orozco. Good win. Maurice Hooker. Real good win. How great was that fight, man? That was a great performance. He also beat Amir Imam. That's a good win. He beat Jose Zepeda. How good is that win aged for Ramirez? And then he beat Victor Postal in his last fight. Didn't look great. It was close. But I think people need to forgive Ramirez for that performance because it had been delayed several times because of COVID. And how many times have we seen in recent fights? Jamel Herring didn't look great during his COVID fight. I think Oscar Valdez didn't look great during his COVID fight. But they looked way better in the fight following their COVID fight, right? And they put on career best performances. Could we see the same thing from Ramirez this weekend? Also, Mexican fighters of Mexican descent, whether they be American or Mexican, have been doing really well against UK fighters lately, whether it's over there in the UK or over in the United States, or just fighters from that part of the world. You know, I know Taylor's a Scotsman, but I'm just saying I have to bring that up because there has been a recent track record. Let's see. Also, here's another thing that no one's talking about. In 2020, Josh Taylor fought one round against Pinan Kongsong, right? Who was a mandatory opponent, obliterated that guy. He had no business being in the ring with him. It wasn't even a full 3 minutes. So in all of 2020, in the last year and a half, Taylor has fought not even 3 minutes. For Ramirez, he had a couple of bubble camps, right? That whole setup there in Vegas with Top Rank, and then ends up finally fighting Postal. That goes to 12-round distance. He didn't look great, but he got through it, and he got 36 minutes of work in with one of the most proven, tested veterans in the 140-pound weight class. I think those 12 rounds are going to serve him extremely well this weekend. And for Taylor to only get about 2 minutes of work in the last year and a half, he's going to have some rust, man. He's absolutely going to have some rust. I think Ramirez is going to look really, really sharp early on in this fight because of all the things I just talked about. I'm not going to give my pick yet. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes because I want to talk really quickly. Well, first of all, the undercard. Jose Zepeda, who I just talked about, coming off his fight of the year last October over Baranchek, is going over and fighting Henry Hank Lundy, who's 37 years old, out of Philly, fought everybody. This is, of course, a 140-pound fight. Another 140 fight on this card. Elvis Rodriguez, very fast-moving prospect. Fought 5 times in 2019. 5 fights last year in those bubble series fights with Top Rank. This is already his second fight of 2021. He's going up against Kenneth Sims. So the Zepeda Lundy fight is 10 rounds. Rodriguez Sims is 8 rounds. Those are both at 140. Smart by Top Rank because, hey, main event's at 140. So maybe you got some future matchups that you could make out of this whole thing. But Let's talk about promotion real quick, because the promotion has been weak, real weak. How much of this is ESPN? How much of it is Top Rank? Okay. Two separate entities. Now, I understand that Top Rank Boxing is on ESPN, but ESPN is a sports platform. And ESPN is kind of broken into two wings. You have the sports broadcasting platform that shows you basketball games, football games, boxing, UFC, whatever it is, right? And there's the ESPN network, there's ESPN Deportes, ESPN2, there's like 8,000 ESPNs. There's the ESPN Plus app, okay? They show you documentaries, you know, all that stuff, right? That's the broadcasting network platform. And then there's the sports news platform, right? That's ESPN. As far as sports news goes, I haven't paid attention to ESPN in years, especially when it comes to boxing. I don't go to ESPN for breaking news most of the time, although I did quote a Mark Kriegel tweet at the opening of this show. So I'm being somewhat hypocritical here, but I follow Mark. I respect Mark a lot. And my boy, Steve Kim, my good friend, wrote for ESPN for a while there, and I would I'll read all his stuff, of course. But right now, ESPN, to me, isn't really in the boxing news business. I don't follow them for that. So what I see ESPN doing on their news shows, right? What's the one with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman? I can't think of what the hell the name of it is. First Take, I think it's called. First Take. They will talk about Jake Paul knocking off Floyd Mayweather's cap. That is their boxing news. That's the kind of stuff they're going to talk about, because they're trying to appeal to the casual sports fan, and they're trying to appeal. They do the woke thing politically and all that kind of stuff. So there's an agenda with everything that they do. They're not talking about diehard boxing matchups on regular ESPN, right? Outside of Top Rank boxing programming on ESPN don't give a damn about boxing. So it doesn't surprise me at all that a matchup like this between Taylor and Ramirez, which is a diehard fight fans type of matchup, isn't being promoted on ESPN. I haven't seen Ramirez on SportsCenter. I don't watch SportsCenter. So if some of you guys have seen some of this stuff and I'm wrong, correct me, okay? But it wouldn't surprise me if Ramirez isn't being featured on SportsCenter, in First Take, and all those kinds of shows. On the surface, you think about it, he should be. He's a former Olympian. He's literally the American dream, right? Immigrant family, and look at all he's accomplished. He does all sorts of community work. He's one of the real good guys in boxing with a wonderful story, undefeated American fighter, former Olympian. He should be all over those ESPN shows, but they're going to be more interested in talking about the Jake Paul freak show kind of stuff, or if there's like a transgender boxer or something like that, they're going to talk about that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff ESPN is going to talk about. So it doesn't surprise me that you're not seeing this fight promoted by ESPN. All right, so that's one piece of the promotion. Then there's Top Rank. I think they've completely mishandled this entire promotion. And I understand that there's a massive site fee involved here. So they're getting their guys paid. And that's their number one job as a promoter. Get your fighters paid. And these site deals usually don't just include one fight. You know, especially when you're dealing with Vegas, you're dealing with the MGM executives. MGM owns like 90% of that damn town. So the site fee that they're getting probably involves options on future fights, right? And Top Rank is they're in Vegas. That's where they're headquartered. They're going to continue to do all sorts of events there throughout the rest of this year, going forward, years from now. So it makes sense. I understand why there's all sorts of stuff written into this contract, I'm sure, with the casino buy-in and everything. But you're putting this fight in front of 1,200 fans, 1,300 fans, and it's socially distanced. I think it's a 50% capacity thing. And I'd say 1,000 of these tickets were part of the casino buy-in deal. So they're going to whales, degenerate gamblers from all over the place that like to fly in and blow 20 grand in a week and get their ass kissed by the casino because they're spending so much money. These ticket packages are part of that whole thing. So that's where the majority of these tickets are going. I asked you guys on Twitter, how many of you actually were able to go and buy a ticket during that internet sale, right? And I only know like 2 or 3 of you who are able to get one, right? You compare that to the Canelo Saunders fight, which just happened in front of 70,000 people. It broke through. It was a massive promotion. It was in Texas, 100% open, where they could do a crowd like that. That's where this fight should be. But I think for political reasons, number one, but also for financial reasons and future planning financially, that's why this fight went to Vegas and it's at this small venue. It puts a little bit of a shit stain on it for me, but you can't shit on this matchup. It's such a damn good fight. So that is my feelings why this promotion was so bad. Again, ESPN, they're not going to talk about real boxing. They're not in that business. And the real boxing guys that they've had attached to their platform, they've frustrated them so much that they left, right? So they don't have that right now. So I'm not surprised. But for Top Rank, man, you're getting your guys paid. But damn, this should be in front. I'm not saying this fight would have did 70,000 fans in Texas. I'm not saying that. But it probably could have did 20,000. You probably could have did that. I understand you can't put it in California. Who the hell would want to put a fight in California right now, a fight like this? I get it. You put this in Texas, that's neutral territory. Ramirez has fought there before, but pretty much it's neutral territory. And yeah, you probably don't get the same amount of money, but you're probably getting in front of 20,000 fans, and it would just make the atmosphere better. I just hope that the atmosphere doesn't feel stale for this fight, because the majority of the people that will be in attendance are not diehard fight freaks. That's what worries me. Okay, back to the matchup itself. Everything I told you guys a few minutes ago, okay, it gives me this gut feeling, this feeling, this visceral gut reaction and feeling in me to say that Ramirez is going to grind out a W. He's going to gut out a W. He's going to find a way to beat Taylor. He's going to look better than we've ever seen him look in a fight. He's going to get off to a fast start. He's going to get some great work done on the inside, and he is going to grind out a win over Taylor, maybe swell and bust Taylor up, cause some cuts later in the fight that affect Taylor. But, however, I say all that, and I follow it with this. I thought Regis Prograis was going to beat Josh Taylor. And I remember watching that fight in the World Boxing Super Series finale a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago. And I was so impressed by Taylor grinding out that fight against the guy in Prograis, who was fighting on the road, was a shorter guy, punching up at Taylor, all those things. I get it. But I told myself when Taylor won that fight, I'm not going to pick against this dude again. He impressed me. And despite this gut feel that I have, and every indication in my brain telling me Ramirez is going to win, I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to take Taylor by split decision in a very, very close fight. Wouldn't surprise me. Either guy could win. Either guy could stop either guy. But I keep reminding myself of the guy that grinded out those wins against Baranchek, who's a really strong dude, and then Prograis, who's a very strong-willed dude and was willing to do anything to win that fight. And Taylor found a way to win those fights. So I'm going to take Taylor by split decision in a very, very good matchup. Guys, again, I will say this as a public service announcement. Make sure, if you're going to watch any sporting event this weekend, you watch this one. Reward these young, undefeated fighters for getting in the ring, putting it all on the line to completely unify a division. These two guys could go different ways. Ramirez could just fight in Fresno, where he could do big crowds up there, right? And he could fight whoever the hell he wants and do big crowds and make good money. Taylor could fight in his part of the world and do big crowds and make money. These guys didn't have to fight each other, but they are. We need to reward them by watching this fight, tweeting about it, Facebooking about it, all that shit. You should be telling everybody you know, hey, man, if you're going to watch a damn boxing match this year, if you have that friend or family member that watches like one fight a year, you need to be hitting them up this week and saying, look, this is the one to watch. All right. Let's reward these guys for doing the right thing. All right. Looks like we got one more call here. I'm going to take this last call, and then we're going to I was going to say tap out, but we don't tap out in boxing. So I'm going to take a knee. All right. 847. You're on the show. 847.
Hey, Mike, this is Rich from Illinois. How you doing today?
Rich in Illinois. What's up, my man? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks. It's not tap out, it's knockout.
There you go. I'm going to knock out.
Yeah. And you should know better that
I know
Fury and Wilder needs to happen because of the suit. Wilder's suit. The heavy suit.
Dude, yeah, you know what? Dude, if it really happens, it looks like it will happen. If I'm Fury, I'm playing mind games like a motherfucker. I'm wearing a suit to the ring. I'm loading up my gloves and doing videos on social media with loaded gloves and stuff, or punching with egg weights. I'm just trolling the hell out of Wilder to get in his head.
Exactly. No, jokes aside. Just want to comment real quick on the Taylor Ramirez fight. I'm on board with you. I think it's a fantastic matchup. Kind of been waiting for it. I see it as a 50-50 fight. And I heard your prediction. I'm going to go with the gut feeling that you had. I'm leaning towards Ramirez in this fight. But it really can go either way. I'm leaning towards Ramirez by split decision. I'm doing the reverse.
So, yeah, I don't blame you, man. I mean, I'm telling you, like every instinct in me says Ramirez, but I'm just trying to I'm stubbornly sticking to my guns because I told myself I'm never picking against against Taylor again after seeing him beat Prograis.
Yeah, no, I got he showed a lot of heart in that fight. And with Ramirez, like I said, I know a lot of people might go off the Postal fight where I think most people are saying that Taylor looked better with Postal than Ramirez did, but styles make fights in my opinion. And I think with Ramirez, I think Taylor's actually going to start off pretty quick, and I think down the line, I think Ramirez is going to pick up the momentum, and I think he's going to break him down and apply a lot of pressure. And I think he's going to pick up the mid to late rounds. That's kind of how I'm seeing that fight. But like I said, I think everybody's going to be split on it, 50-50.
Yeah, I actually see. Yeah. I think Ramirez. I don't know, man. I keep going back and forth. I just think that Ramirez should start sharper because of those 12 rounds he had last year against Postal, the tough camps. And then with Taylor, he only had one round, man, against a very limited fighter.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to have rust. You know what I mean? That's what you should see.
That's true. That's true. And like I said, I think this is it's a tough fight. Leaning towards Ramirez, and like I said, I'm definitely going to be tuning on ESPN on Saturday to be watching that fight. And actually, I think this past weekend's fights were really good too. I think PBC put up a good triple header over the past weekend. I think all the fights that they showed were delivered. And for, I guess to me, with Brandon Figueroa, really he impresses me every time I see him. He just beats his opponents on relentless pressure and volume and his conditioning. And with Lewis Nearly, I really thought that I think his best weight is bantamweight. It's just that he had all these weight issues. But I think he was doing well in the fight. But I think he just the shots were not he landed some good shots on Figueroa coming in. He was doing some good counter punches, but Figueroa just took him and just kind of walked him down. He broke him down basically. And then I think the body shots at the end just took it out of Neary, at the end. Now as far as I think Neary belongs at 118. We'll see what happens after that. For Figueroa, I think him in the Fulton fight is going to be really good. And I think the same thing could happen. I see Fulton as the better boxer, but if Figueroa keeps that pressure, maybe maybe he can use the jab a little bit better. Because I saw like he kind of didn't do too much of the jab in the Neary fight, but he puts the pressure and keeps it up. And I think the late rounds get interesting, and let's see if Fulton can handle that pressure in a long fight.
Yeah, so, the late rounds are going to get real interesting. Yeah,
I think it's a good matchup, and just kind of going also back to that co-feature with Danny Roman. I think like I said, he's still a player at 122, and I think he will give a good fight to any of these guys we mentioned. But I think he also deserves a title shot next, as well. So maybe after the Figueroa Fulton fight, or the Akmadea fighter, they can go at it again. I think that they should be a rematch, because that fight with Akmadea was a very close fight.
Very close.
I think I personally edged Roman in that fight.
Yeah.
I personally edged Roman, but it could have gone either way. But they definitely should do a rematch for sure.
Dude, like I said, the top 5 of that division, any combination of them in the ring is just a good fight. And Danny Roman, he might be the best fighter in that division on any given night.
No, I think so too. I think he's a great counterpuncher.
Mm-hmm.
I think, man, imagine if he had a little bit more power. I mean, he'd be knocking a lot of guys out. He was nailing Espinosa some really good hard uppercuts in that fight. But Espinosa's like really, really tough guy with a good chin. Definitely this past weekend was a good weekend of boxing, and then this one will be too. And going to your point again with that promotion, I would say badly handled.
It's terrible.
So I could have done a better job, and like I said, definitely spread the word as far as tune in for the fight. I think personally, because I've also watched MMA too. I'm more boxing at heart, but I think they promote the UFC way better than boxing. From what I've seen, I mean, everybody, good promotion for UFC, and I'm big into UFC too, but that's what I've seen. I would like to see that same type of promotion for boxing as well as they do with UFC.
Yeah, it's like the culture is different, because with UFC, the brand is UFC. It's similar to like the NFL. When you think American football, you think the NFL. When you think of basketball, you think of the NBA. With boxing, no one cares if it's Top Rank, PBC. I mean, some people on the internet do, but outside of trolls, nobody cares if it's the WBA, WBO. No one gives a shit. The fighter is the brand,
right.
And that's what's so different about boxing. And I don't think that's ever going to change. That's just the nature of the sport. So, but I agree with you. I mean, this is an example of two fighters who aren't household names, and they do need promotion. And again, like Jose Ramirez, he should be all over ESPN. He's such a great story. He's the American dream. How are they not promoting the hell out of this kid?
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree big time. I think they missed it. They missed on that one.
Well, Rich, I got a few more calls, man, that just called in. So,
go for it, man. Go for it.
I appreciate you calling in again, bro. Have a good one.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, you too. Take it easy.
You too. Bye. Real quick on the chat, Soapbox Podcast asking for the Elvis versus Sims prediction. Elvis Rodriguez going up against Kenneth Sims Jr. Obviously, I like Rodriguez in that fight. I mean, Rodriguez is a good-looking prospect, bro. I'd like him in that fight. Juan Salazar asking, is this fight on ESPN Plus or just ESPN Cable? Both. So you can watch it on the network live, Taylor Ramirez, or you can watch it on the ESPN Plus app. So they are smartly putting it on both. All right, a couple more quick calls. Let's jump over. We've got looks like some UK calls. 777, you're on the chat.
How you doing? It's Nige. You right there, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here. Nige, what's up, man?
I'm all good, thank you. I'm all good, man. I'm just in the other bedroom while everyone's asleep. I was watching on YouTube, and I thought I'm compelled to call in with all the news and notes that are going on. So I was just want to touch back on last week where he talked about with Navarrete's fight against Cruz, and I was doing a fighter comparison, and I'm thinking, I don't know if you agree with this. Navarrete reminds me, in a way, with being so unorthodox, a little bit of Carl Froch, Nothing's very own Carl Froch, in the way that what he does doesn't look textbook at all, and he carries that left hand low, and he doesn't necessarily have the speed or the reflexes as you would with someone with that kind of style. You know what I mean? But he does it well. Do you know what I mean? It's very, you know what I mean? A bit near. Do you know what I mean? But he does what he does very, very well. And with with the long arms as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good comparison, man, because Froch had some long arms. He had some real long arms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that comparison.
He did. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Right, and now another thing I want to ask you as well, I've got to tell you, from a UK fans, boxing fans' point of view, it's absolutely disgraceful that no UK broadcaster has picked up the unification fight for Taylor Ramirez. It's really, really, really pissed me off.
Really?
Some of the shows that they've got Fight TV. Yeah, it's on Fight TV. But,
wow, I didn't know that.
That's about, so like Sky Sports not picking it up, BT Sports not picking it up, not even Channel 5, who recently showed Jamel Herring against Carl Froch.
Yeah, because Channel 5 has a Sam Eggington fight Saturday that they're showing.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And they've shown some Hennessy Hennessy cards in the past as well. You know what I mean? But the fact that none of them have picked it up is really, really, really disgraceful in my eyes. And it's like a slap in the face to British boxing in a way. But the Sky Sports are going to. They've announced as well that they're going to show the Logan Paul versus Mayweather, but they're not going to show. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
man,
Sky Sports making it. Sky Sports are saying it's more about entertainment. It's not boxing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because they did show the Mayweather and McGregor on pay-per-view as well.
Sky Sports is your ESPN. It's the same thing ESPN here, where it's more about, it's almost like, I don't know if you know what TMZ is. It's a tabloid here in America.
Yeah.
It's basically TMZ with sports. Pretty much all it is at this point.
Yeah, and it's just really, really disgraceful. I mean, put it this way. I mean, a fight like this, Taylor Ramirez, I'd happily pay for, because you're going to get spec fireworks. It's one, it's the best against the best. That's what boxing should be about. And you know what I mean? And that's what every boxing fan, whether casual, you take a little bit of interest, or you die hard, should be watching, because it's rare that these kind of bouts come round, in boxing, full stop. Do you know what I mean? Without all the political bullshit in the background, So really not good. So I have to say, British broadcasters suck balls basically for doing that. God damn them. But anyway, another thing I wanted to ask you, because with regards, now I've heard Terence Crawford say, with regards to what he's achieved so far in the sport, he's already in the Hall of Fame. That's what he believes, perhaps. Whether or not I'm paraphrasing, but maybe it's something along those lines.
Yeah, I remember that
long ago. Yeah. Now, regardless who wins this unification bout, would you say you can make a strong argument that they have a much better resume at 140 than Crawford, and based on that logic from that statement, maybe they should be going to the IBF Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the only difference is that Crawford technically won a title at 135, cleaned out 140, and then won a title at 47.
That is true. Multi-weight world champion.
He has that claim. Yeah. But you're not lying about 140. I mean, both, I'd say Taylor and Ramirez already have a better resume at 140, just in terms of who they beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's not Crawford's fault or who's available at the time. It's similar with the Klitschko situation.
Right.
You beat who you beat, who's there. You know what I mean? You can't, make up an imaginary opponent and have them face them, and you know what I mean? But But I just wanted to share that with you. So UK boxing not picking up the one of the best fights probably this year. I'm going to go out and say, yeah. So that's some bullshit right there.
That's horrible, man. That's just horrible.
It is. But anyway, Mike, I know you got another call waiting. I'm going to let you go. So again, keep up the good work, and speak soon, man.
All right, thanks a lot, brother. Have a good one.
You take care, man. Thanks. Bye.
All right, real quick before the call, last call here, Chit Corchado on the chat says, I sent you a tweet yesterday about Mosley and Canelo. Be cool if you could talk about it. I'm late to the chat. If you could, brother, remind me of what that tweet was about. I'm sorry. I get so many messages. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you might have been asking about drug testing as it relates to Mosley and Canelo and them testing positive and having issues with PEDs. Correct me if I'm wrong. So get back in the chat and just give me some details on what you wanted to know about. And yeah, we'll talk about it, brother. All right. And let's get this last call here. We got another UK call. So let's jump on here. 796. You're on the show. 796.
Hello, Mike.
Is this Ahmed?
Yeah, yes, sir. How's it going?
What's up, man? How you doing, Ahmed?
I mean, the buzzkill came in just as I finished work.
I know, man. Right before bed, right before you guys got to go to sleep, you got to read this shit.
So I was working, and just as I'm about to clock out or get out the building, I see a notification from Michael Benson. And even though I talked about it yesterday, because I was talking to someone in the group chat, boxing group chat, and they made a good point. The reason Tyson Fury announced the fight and Bob Arum or none of the other promoters went on record was, I think Fury or someone in the team told him that, this is just opinion, it could be maybe not true, but they knew that they either lost the case or Wilder won the case, and they wanted to prevent getting the blame, and in a way it was damage control. I don't know what you think about that, but the timing of it was a bit odd. After saying that there's no money guaranteed and all that, and then saying he got off the phone to the prince or whatever, the sheikh or king of Saudi Arabia. Like, I don't know. I agree with Steve Kemp. You can't really feel too much for a lot of these guys when they've been saying every week that this fight's going to be announced this week, and then we're in May now. And I don't know. I'm kind of lost interest in the whole thing, but at the same time, I don't want to see the Wilder third fight. But could we really blame Wilder if it's in the contract? I think even Wilder's biggest critic, you can't really blame him. Like, if Fury and his team made the mistake of stepping or whatever, not taking the third fight when it was there, then I think they maybe deserve some blame as well. What do you think about that?
I think it's a fair point. I don't blame Wilder for wanting the third fight. I just think, why didn't he want the third fight late last year when Fury and Arum and their team were willing to do it?
He got injured.
Well, apparently there was a deadline that passed, and then it was after the deadline passed, Wilder started talking about the third fight. And I just think there's just been so much grandstanding from all parties involved. The one person that I'll give credit is Anthony Joshua. He's pretty much just shut up and let the process play out, and he's just been training and doing his thing. So he deserves credit. But Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Eddie Hearn, just all these guys involved in this situation. Every week it's some new shit on Twitter, and I'm just sick of it. It's been overload, so whoever fights, great. But like you, Hamed, I'm not particularly excited about a third fight between Fury and Wilder. I don't hate the fight. It's always going to be a good matchup between those two. They're two of the top heavyweights in the world. And I do think the third fight will be better than the second fight, but it's not the fight that we need. It's not number one versus number two.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I agree. This would have been a good case. Now, I don't know what's in the corner, but if the fight, if it's ordered by the judge and they have to fight him, or Fury will get stripped or whatever, step aside. I don't know the WBC what they're saying, but say if they have to fight him, then they'll have to go ahead. I do think the bad thing about this is I don't know if we'll ever get the Joshua Fury fight thing when they're both in their prime, because I'm not sure, but I think Usyk could beat Joshua. I don't know what you think, but I think Usyk is all wrong.
I don't know. We still haven't seen Usyk take a real heavyweight punch. So we just don't know if he can handle a straight right hand from Joshua, and one of those shots will get in. If he can, then I agree with you. He can beat he can beat Joshua, but I'm just not sure.
So Usyk did a better job. Look, outside David Haye, everyone else has either won 12 rounds with Chisora, or they have to have a rematch to knock out Chisora or stop it, whatever. I think that Hayes win has aged really well in 2012, but Usyk I thought did a better job than Parker did on Chisora, and even Dillian Whyte. The first fight could have went either way. I know he knocked him off in the second fight, but a lot of people thought Chisora was winning that till he got clipped. Besides the point, he needed 2 fights to get rid of him. I think Usyk is better than Parker, so if he could overcome the size, I think he would maybe trouble Joshua. And if he could maybe take a punch, maybe he can beat Joshua. But style-wise, I'm not sure if you'd want to put Joshua in with him. I heard Steve Kim saying that he made a good point. I think it was on one of the podcasts. Since last February, I think only out of these 3 guys, Joshua, Fury, and Wilder, if only one of them was fought, which is Joshua against Pulev. So I don't think it's a good look when people are criticizing Canelo. At least Canelo has fought 3-4 times since then.
3 times in 6 months.
Is now just being held up. Yeah,
that's my biggest complaint is that we had a global pandemic last year that put everything on hold, and I understand, and that's nobody's fault. But so far in 2021, when things are opening back up, the whole boxing world has been waiting for Fury, Joshua, Wilder, for this whole situation to get resolved. Then everything else will follow. And, I just feel like all 3 of those guys are going to fight once in 2021. It's just a bad situation, and it's holding up progress.
Yeah, I think it's holding up the sport and the division. When every division is being held up, it's not good. I think what would have been good was if Joshua and Fury fought. I know people want in the UK, but at the moment, I think Eddie Heard was saying that they can't guarantee crowds, so it's not going to be in the UK. But whatever they fight, if it's in Saudi Arabia, if it's in China or whatever, and the winner is to fight Wilder, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
Wilder fights Ruiz or Charles Martin. At least then, if Joshua wins, Joshua Wilder potentially would be maybe a fight they could make next. But now, I'm not sure. I still favor Fury, but I don't know what happens if Wilder wins that big fight. I just know, like the whole thing.
If he does,
I don't think he's a fight.
I don't know if he'll fight Joshua. I don't know if a Wilder Joshua fight would happen because Wilder's turned it down in the past. But I mean, I got to wrap up the show, man. I've been going for an hour 40, so.
Yeah, that's the thing, Michael. Good job. I'll say then we may have to see a 4th fight. I don't know if a lot of people are interested in that. I think the 3rd fight will do better than the first fight in America, but there's no way it's going to do better than the second fight. Then.
No way.
To my knowledge, the second fight almost cracked 1 million. It didn't even crack 1 million. I think it was 900,000. But I'll let you get on with it. A good show, and as usual, keep up the good work. Thank
you, Ahmed. Have a good day or good night.
All right, you too.
Appreciate it.
You too. Good show.
All right, guys. A couple more things in the chat here. So Chit Corchado was asking about. So he says Shane Mosley went 12 rounds with Ricardo Mayorga, then turns around and looks superhuman against Antonio Margarito. He has a history with Belko, but it seems he gets a pass from the media and the fans. Well, I mean, Shane Mosley, he did have a pass with performance-enhancing drugs. I don't know if he gets a pass from a lot. Maybe he does from some fight fans. But as far as the Margarito fight, I mean, that's a styles make fights thing. But also, Antonio Margarito is mentally shot because of what took place minutes before that fight in the locker room. We had to rewrap his hands. Something was found in his glove. I'm not going to go through that entire case again. But he was mentally done going into the ring that night. So that was not Mosley beating a 100% mentally, emotionally fit version of Antonio Margarito. I do think that played a role there. As far as him getting a a pass from fans and stuff. He fought before VADA testing was as mainstream as it is right now. He fought before social media was as huge as it is now. I understand social media was around when Shane was fighting, but social media is much bigger now. And the entire boxing industry is basically on social media now, right? There's apps streaming fights. There's no more HBO. The entire landscape of the sport has completely changed. So he kind of benefited from being in a different era where things were less transparent and people talked about these things less. So some of it was just timing. But when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs in boxing, a lot of guys seem to get a pass. The guys that really get hit the hardest in terms of PR are 2-time, 3-time poppers. Guys like Jarrell Big Baby Miller. That's a guy that he screwed up an amazing opportunity where he was going to fight Joshua for the heavyweight championship of the world. That could have been him fighting AJ, compromised Anthony Joshua instead of Andy Ruiz. And he screwed it up with performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, that's just unforgivable. Shane Mosley, yeah, he used performance-enhancing drugs, but he also did some amazing things in the amateurs and in the pros. He had some amazing performances. He accomplished superhuman feats in the ring. Was he 100% natural or partially artificial? I don't know, but you can't take away those W's now and the championships and things like that. So that's the difference between Mosley and, say, a guy like Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Miller's never fought anybody. His first chance to really fight somebody, he screwed it up. And then, I think not even a year later, he screwed it up again. You know what I'm saying? He was being given an opportunity by Top Rank, and he screwed that up. So that's the difference, why some guys get a pass and others don't. At the end of the day, if you get in the ring and do special things, that's what fight fans are going to remember the most. Muhammad Ali is called the greatest ever. He did some really nasty things outside the ring. He treated some friends and family members bad. He wasn't a very good husband. He wasn't a very good father. He wasn't a good friend to people like Joe Frazier who went out of their way to help him. And I'm not beating up on Muhammad Ali. He was one of the greatest fighters of all time. But people kind of overlook some of those, weaknesses in his character because of what he accomplished in the ring. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what it is with Mosley. So, all right, guys, let's wrap it up, man. Wow, some crazy breaking news. And depending on where you side on all this thing with this Deontay Wilder arbitration deal, you're either super, super excited or you're kind of bummed out because we were a few months away from the biggest fight in heavyweight boxing in 30 years. So that's kind of a buzzkill, man. But such is life in the boxing world. Anyway, guys, awesome show. Maybe we'll do another one Friday on my channel, so keep your eyes open for that. If I have the availability work-wise, I will do it. Either way, we'll watch the fight together Saturday night. That's going to be an awesome fight between Taylor and Ramirez, and we'll chop it all up next Monday on TNC. All right, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you.